All right, welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We all hit those rough patches in life, right? Like,
Absolutely.
you wake up and you're just like, you know,
Yep.
or like something really unexpected comes out of left field and throws everything for a loop.
Happens to all of us.
It really does. And it's like, how do we deal with those moments, right?
Well, that's what we're going to explore today. How to not just survive life's curveballs, but really use those experiences to become stronger. And I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful something as simple as journaling can be for that.
Totally. It seems so basic, right?
It
Like,
does.
oh, just grab a notebook and write my feelings. But it can be so much more than that.
It really can be.
It's like a whole different way of thinking about problem solving and becoming more resilient.
Absolutely.
And we were looking into some different approaches to this, and actually, Stallion, you know them.
Yeah, yeah.
They make these awesome journals, and they have one called Journal Notebook for Overcoming Challenges that really emphasizes that connection between journaling and building resilience.
What's so cool about Stallion is they don't just give you blank pages.
Right.
They've really thought about how the actual features of a journal can help you think more deeply and strategically about your challenges.
So it's almost like the journal itself is a tool for becoming more resilient.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty here.
Sure.
Like, when things are going sideways, my first instinct isn't always to be like, oh, I'm going to journal about this.
Right.
So how does the act of journaling, like regularly writing, actually make us more resilient?
Okay, well, picture this. You're stressed, right?
Yep.
Overwhelmed. It feels like your thoughts and emotions are just swirling around in your head like a storm.
Oh, I've been there.
Right.
Yeah.
And your journal, that becomes your safe space. It's a place where you can take all that chaos and actually get it out of your head and onto paper.
Right.
And when you can see those thoughts, when they're not just swirling around internally, you can start to make sense of them. You can look at them more objectively, and that's really the first step towards gaining control.
Yeah, it's like instead of just feeling lost in those emotions,
Hmm.
you can actually start to untangle them.
Right, exactly. And what's cool is, as you keep journaling regularly, you'll start to notice patterns in how you react to things.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe you realize that certain situations always trigger a specific feeling, or that you have certain negative thought patterns that keep popping up.
I feel like I'm guilty of that.
Oh, we all are, honestly.
Yeah.
But that self-awareness, that's key to becoming more resilient.
Because then you know what to look out for.
Exactly. It's like knowing your own early warning signs so you can be better prepared when those tough emotions start to come up again.
So it's almost like recognizing those emotional currents before they pull you under.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And this ties into what's called emotional regulation, which is all about learning to manage those big feelings. When you journal about a challenging situation, you're not just reacting on impulse.
Right.
You're taking the time to process it, either as it's happening or even afterward.
So you're creating some space between the trigger and your response.
Precisely. And that space, even if it's just a few moments, allows you to be more intentional and less reactive. It's like hitting the pause button on those knee-jerk reactions. It's the difference between being swept away by the emotion and becoming an observer of the emotion, which creates space for a more thoughtful, less emotionally driven response.
And speaking of space, Stallion makes a point of highlighting their durable 120 GSM paper in their journals. And it might seem like a small thing, but I'm curious, how does the quality of the paper affect this whole process of building resilience through journaling?
That's a great question. It might seem like a detail, but it actually plays a pretty big role. Think about it. If you're trying to work through tough emotions and the paper is flimsy or the ink bleeds through, it's just annoying.
Well, for sure.
It takes you out of the moment.
Yeah, it's distracting.
Exactly. But when you have a journal with nice, thick paper that feels good to write on, it becomes a more pleasurable experience. You're not fighting with the tool, you're just letting your thoughts flow.
So it's like the journal itself is supporting that sense of calm and focus, which is so important when you're dealing with difficult emotions.
Absolutely. And that smooth writing experience also encourages mindfulness because you can really focus on the words you're putting on the page.
And Stallion talks about how their journals encourage mindfulness, which I think is so interesting
Well,
because when we're stressed or facing challenges, our minds tend to go to the past,
yeah.
like dwelling on regrets, or to the future, like worrying about what might happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does focusing on the present moment through writing help us in those situations?
Well, mindfulness isn't just about meditation, you know? It's about intentionally bringing your attention to the here and now, without judgment. And when you're journaling, you're literally focusing on your present thoughts and feelings as you put them into words.
Yeah.
So even if you're reflecting on past events or thinking about future possibilities, the act of writing grounds you in the present moment.
I can see that.
And that present moment awareness, it quiets all that mental chatter, all those worries and what ifs, which helps you cope with whatever's happening right now. It helps you center yourself and actually be present with your experience, even when it's difficult.
And I think that's a really powerful skill to develop, especially when life throws those curveballs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those specific challenges we all face, because let's be real, we all deal with stress, we all have moments of self-doubt, and uncertainty is just part of life.
Mo, for sure.
So how does journaling, actually putting pen to paper, help us deal with those kinds of hurdles?
Think of your journal as a pressure valve for your emotions. When stress is building up, write down everything that's contributing to it. It might seem simple, but getting it out of your head and onto paper can be incredibly cathartic. It can make those worries feel less overwhelming because you're not just carrying them around internally.
It's like you're giving them a physical form so you can start to break them down.
Exactly. And by breaking them down, you start to see things more clearly. You gain a sense of control because you're not just feeling overwhelmed by this big, amorphous blob of stress. It's like you're taking that blob and separating it into manageable pieces.
And I imagine that feeling of control is especially important when you're dealing with uncertainty, because uncertainty can breed a lot of anxiety.
It absolutely can. But when you journal about those uncertainties, you're facing them head on instead of avoiding them. You can ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? What are the possible outcomes? What aspects of this situation can I actually influence? And by actively engaging with those questions, you often find that the uncertainty starts to feel less scary.
And what about self-doubt? Because that can be such a sneaky thing that holds us back.
Self-doubt can be so insidious, but journaling can help you confront those negative voices. When you write down those self-doubting thoughts, you can start to examine them more objectively. You can ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have to support this belief?
It's almost like you're taking those thoughts to court.
Exactly. You're putting them on trial and seeing if they hold up under scrutiny.
Now, Stallion journals actually include specific prompts to help with this process, like, what is holding me back?
Yeah.
And what steps can I take to overcome this obstacle?
Yeah, those are great prompts.
How effective are those kinds of guided questions in a journal?
They're super helpful, especially if you're feeling stuck or you don't know where to start. It's like having a little coach inside your journal guiding you towards deeper self-reflection. The "what is holding me back" prompt encourages you to think about those limiting beliefs or fears that might be sabotaging you without you even realizing it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. And then, what steps can I take to overcome this obstacle? That immediately shifts your focus away from the problem and towards finding solutions.
It's like a call to action.
Exactly.
Now, I noticed that Stallion journals also have numbered pages and a built-in table of contents, which I think is really interesting.
I love that feature.
How do those organizational elements actually help us when we're using journaling to deal with life's challenges?
Well, when you're working through difficult things, or even just tracking your personal growth over time, staying organized is key.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Exactly. But with numbered pages, you can easily reference specific entries. So maybe you had a moment of insight or you brainstormed a really helpful strategy, you can quickly flip back to that page.
Right.
And the table of contents, that becomes like a personal map of your journey through whatever you're dealing with. So let's say you're journaling about a recurring challenge at work with the table of contents. You can quickly find all the entries related to that issue.
Oh, that's smart.
You can see how your perspective has evolved over time, what approaches have worked for you, and it just makes the whole process feel so much more manageable.
So it's almost like creating your own personal archive of wisdom and strategies for dealing with different challenges.
And I love that. Yeah, it's like you're building your own resilience toolkit.
That's a great way to put it. And what I'm hearing is that journaling isn't just about venting or expressing your feelings. It can also be a really powerful tool for problem solving and personal growth.
Absolutely. Journaling can actually help you turn challenges into opportunities to become a better version of yourself. It encourages you to be more intentional in your thinking, to set clear goals and figure out the steps you need to take to achieve them.
So it's like a shift from feeling reactive to feeling proactive.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your life, even when things feel out of control.
And I think that sense of agency is so important for building resilience.
It's essential.
So we've talked about reflection, But let's dive into the creative problem-solving aspect of journaling, because I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful it can be for unlocking new ideas and solutions.
It's amazing, right?
It is.
I mean, how often do you get stuck in a loop replaying the same worries over and over?
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Right. But your journal can be a space where you break free from that. You can brainstorm on paper, whether you're using mind maps, bullet points, or just free writing, letting your thoughts flow without judgment.
I love mind maps.
They're so helpful. And you might be surprised by the new ideas and perspectives that come up when you give your thoughts that space to breathe.
It's like all those mental roadblocks start to dissolve when you get the ideas out of your head and onto the page.
I completely agree. And sometimes a more structured approach can be helpful too. Like Listalion talks about using a SWOT analysis in your journal.
Oh, yeah.
So you're identifying your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which can help you approach a problem more strategically.
So it's almost like giving yourself a mini consulting session.
Right. It's like having your own personal business coach right there in your journal.
Now, Listalion emphasizes the soft faux leather cover and the portability of their A5 journals. And I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
How does that physical aspect of the journal actually tie into creative problem solving?
Well, inspiration doesn't always strike when you're sitting at your desk, right?
You never know when it's going to hit.
Exactly. And if you have a journal that's comfortable to hold and easy to carry, you can jot down those ideas whenever they come to you, whether you're on a walk, on the bus, or even in the middle of the night.
It's like having a little idea catcher with you all the time.
I love that. And that portability means you can engage with your challenges and brainstorm solutions in different environments, which can sometimes lead to fresh perspectives.
And going back to those action-oriented prompts, like, what is one small step I can take toward resolving this issue? Or what resources are available to me?
Yes.
How do those help move us from thinking to actually doing?
They're all about taking action. The one small step prompt is especially powerful because it makes any challenge feel less daunting. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the whole thing, you just focus on that one small step you can take right now.
It's like breaking down a marathon into manageable miles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the resources prompt encourages you to think about who and what can help you. Do you have friends or family who can support you? Are there tools or information you can access?
So it's about leveraging your support system.
Precisely. It's about realizing you don't have to go through this alone.
So we've talked a lot about the different features of a journal, and Listalion really emphasizes that 120 GSM wood-free ivory paper.
They do, yeah.
And we talked about how that smooth writing experience helps with focus and mindfulness.
Yeah.
Are there any other benefits to having that kind of high-quality paper when it comes to journaling through challenges?
It really comes down to creating a more enjoyable and less distracting writing experience. When the paper is smooth and thick, your pen just glides across the page. You don't have to worry about ink bleeding through or getting smudged.
It's the little things.
It is. And it allows you to fully immerse yourself in the process, to really get into the flow of your thoughts and feelings.
And we talked about how the numbered pages and table of contents help us stay organized and track our progress over time.
Yeah.
But are there any other ways those features support us when we're facing obstacles?
Yeah, they can also provide a sense of control and order, which can be so grounding when you're dealing with something chaotic. Knowing you can easily find past entries and revisit those key insights, it just makes the whole journaling process feel more manageable, especially when you're tackling a really complex or long-term challenge.
It's like you're creating a structured space for your thoughts to evolve.
That's a great way to put it.
And we touched on how the A5 size and soft faux leather cover make the Listalion journals so portable. Are there any other advantages to that specific form factor when it comes to using journaling as a consistent tool during tough times?
The A5 size is perfect because it's big enough to give you plenty of writing space, but it's still small enough to easily toss in your bag.
It's a good balance.
Yeah. And the soft cover makes it flexible, so it's not bulky or awkward to carry around.
It's like an invitation to journal wherever you are.
Exactly. You can have it with you at home, at work, on the go, and that accessibility makes it more likely that you'll actually use it when you need it most.
And I was intrigued by the dashed lined pages because I know Listalion included those based on feedback from people who use their journals. How are those particularly helpful for someone who's journaling through challenges?
Dash lines are great because they offer that balance between structure and freedom. You have those subtle guides to keep your writing neat, but they're not as rigid as solid lines. So you can easily incorporate visuals into your journaling, which can be really helpful for problem solving.
I could see that.
You can use them to make mind maps, to break down big tasks into smaller steps with check boxes, or even just to visually separate different ideas on the page. It just adds another layer of flexibility to the process.
And the back pocket for storing little mementos. That's a really unique feature for a journal that's designed for overcoming challenges.
I love that feature.
How does that tie into the whole process?
I think it speaks to the importance of acknowledging your journey and celebrating your progress, no matter how small. Maybe you have a quote that inspired you during a tough time, or a ticket stub from an event that marked a turning point, or even just a little note of encouragement someone gave you.
I keep things like that too.
Yeah, we all do. And those little mementos, they become tangible reminders of how far you've come, the obstacles you've overcome, and the strength you've already shown. They can be so motivating when you're facing new challenges.
It's like having a little collection of evidence for your own resilience.
I love that.
And finally, 211 wood-free, ivory-colored pages. That's a lot of space for reflection and working through things.
It is.
Does that sheer volume of pages actually have any psychological benefits for someone who's committed to using their journal to overcome challenges?
You know, it might sound strange, but knowing you have that much space can be really freeing.
Interesting.
It takes away that feeling of limitation. You don't have to censor yourself or worry about running out of room. You can really dive deep into your thoughts and feelings, explore complex issues in detail, and it just gives you this sense of having a vast canvas for your inner world to unfold.
It's like having permission to be as messy and exploratory as you need to be.
Exactly, and that can be so important when you're navigating difficult emotions or trying to figure out a long-term plan of action.
You know, this whole conversation reminds me of my friend, we'll call her Anna. She was going through a really tough career transition a while back, and she felt totally lost, super overwhelmed.
I've been there.
It's the worst.
It is.
And she started journaling. And she said that just the act of writing down her fears and anxieties made them feel so much less scary.
That's so common.
Yeah. And she was using some prompts she found online, like, what are my core values? And what kind of work would truly fulfill me? And it was like having a conversation with herself, but on paper. And through that process, she started to figure out what was really important to her and what steps she could take.
Yeah.
Even if they were baby steps, to get there.
That's a perfect example of how journaling can create clarity and direction during times of uncertainty.
Yeah, it's like that act of externalizing those thoughts and feelings and asking those deeper questions, it allowed her to shift from feeling completely adrift to actually charting a new course.
It's so powerful.
It is. And I remember my uncle, he went through a really difficult period with some family stuff, and he was wrestling with a lot of really heavy emotions.
Yeah.
And he wasn't someone who had ever journaled before, but he started keeping a notebook by his bed. And he would just write down whatever was on his mind before he went to sleep.
That's a great time to journal.
He said it wasn't even about trying to find solutions right away. It was just about getting those feelings out of his head.
And that can be enough sometimes.
Yeah. And he later told me that looking back at those early entries, he could see how his thinking gradually started to shift, and how even in the midst of all that heaviness, he started to find glimmers of hope. It was like the journal became this silent witness to his emotional journey.
It's like a safe space to process everything without judgment.
Exactly. And I think those personal stories, they show how versatile journaling can be.
Oh, for sure.
Anna used it for career clarity. Your uncle
Yes.
used it for emotional processing.
It's a tool that can help us navigate all sorts of life's complexities.
Yes, totally. So for our listeners who are thinking, okay, I want to try this journaling thing, what are some tips for making it an effective practice, especially when it comes to overcoming challenges?
Well, the most important thing is consistency. Try to make journaling a regular habit, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes each day. Some people like to journal first thing in the morning, others prefer to do it at night. It really depends on what works best for you. And use those specific prompts we talked about earlier, like what is one thing I can control right now? Or what is one tiny action I can take today?
Because those prompts can really get you unstuck when you don't know what to write about.
Absolutely. And remember, journaling isn't just about the problems. It's also about brainstorming solutions, exploring different possibilities, and identifying those actionable steps you can take.
It's about that shift from passive to active.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative. Use mind maps, sketches, lists, whatever helps you process your thoughts and ideas. And every now and then, go back and read some of your old entries. It can be really encouraging to see how far you've come and to remind yourself of your own strength and resilience.
I love that. Now, what about those common roadblocks that prevent people from starting or sticking with journaling? Like, what if you sit down with your journal and you just feel completely blank?
Oh, that happens to everyone. Don't worry.
Really?
Absolutely. And when it does, go back to those prompts. Ask yourself those simple questions. What are three things I'm grateful for right now? What is one positive outcome I can envision for this situation? What's one small action I can take today? Even those seemingly small questions can unlock a lot of insights. And if you find yourself forgetting to journal regularly, set a reminder on your phone or try linking your journaling practice to an existing habit. Like maybe you journal while you're drinking your morning coffee.
So it's like piggybacking on something you already do every day.
Exactly. And features like the table of contents in the Listallian journals can be really helpful because even if you miss a few days, you can easily pick up where you left off.
That's a good point. And what about when the emotions you're dealing with are just so intense that it's hard to even articulate them on the page?
I get it. Sometimes those emotions can feel really overwhelming. And when that happens, it's okay to start small. You don't have to dive straight into the heart of the pain. You could start with a gratitude list, even if it's just three things you're grateful for. Or you could simply describe your surroundings, make neutral observations about your day. Anything to just get the pen moving.
Yeah.
And having a journal with smooth paper and comfortable line spacing, like the Listallian journals, can make that process a little bit easier too.
And you've mentioned gratitude a few times, and it really does seem to be a recurring theme when it comes to navigating challenges.
It's essential. Gratitude journaling is such a powerful practice because it intentionally shifts your focus away from what's wrong to what's right,
Even when things are tough.
especially when things are tough. And that shift in perspective, it can make a huge difference in how you cope with challenges.
So how can someone effectively incorporate gratitude into their regular journaling practice, even when they're going through a rough time?
Keep it simple and aim for consistency. Try writing down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for each day. And be specific. Instead of just saying, I'm grateful for my family, try, I'm grateful for the funny text my brother sent me today that made me laugh. And make a point of rereading those gratitude entries every now and then. It can be a really powerful reminder of the good things in your life, even when things are hard.
So it's like creating a reservoir of positivity that you can draw from when you need it most.
Exactly. And having a journal like the Listallian with its durable cover and plenty of pages can really support that ongoing practice.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what's the big takeaway here? How does consistently journaling, especially when we're facing those inevitable bumps in the road, contribute to greater resilience?
Journaling helps you build emotional strength in a few key ways. It deepens your self-awareness, it sharpens your problem-solving skills, and it helps you manage stress by giving you a safe outlet for your thoughts and feelings. And having a well-designed journal like the ones from Listallian can make that whole process more enjoyable and effective.
So it's like having a supportive friend and a strategic tool all rolled into one.
I love that analogy.
It's been a really eye-opening conversation. It's amazing how something as simple as journaling can be so powerful for personal growth and building resilience.
It's a practice that everyone can benefit from.
It really is. So for our listeners, think about the challenges you're facing right now. What might you discover about your own strength and resourcefulness by committing to putting pen to paper on a regular basis? It's an accessible practice with the potential for profound personal growth. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.